Welcome to Focus on Liberia. I'm Anthony here hosting. Welcome, welcome to our broadcast here at Focus on Liberia. Today is Monday and it's Monday special. In this Monday special edition of our show, we have a special guest here in studio, and we will be talking about the Center for Media Studies and Peace Building in Liberia. We want to know the work of this institution. The institution has been doing a lot of work that are related to media activities in Liberia. We have the executive director of that institution here as our guest, and we will be talking about the work of the Liberia Center for Media Studies and Peace Building. We want to know what are the programs that they have been carrying on in Liberia, how have they been involved with the issue of protecting the media and media institutions in Liberia. Welcome, hit the share button. The issue of the media is a very important aspect of our democracy, and this institution has been in the vanguard of being there for the media and media personnel. At this time, I will welcome my guest, Mr. Marco Limonga Joseph. Mr. Joseph, welcome to Focus on Liberia. It's my pleasure having you as guest.
Well, thank you very much. I feel very happy and elated to be on your program for the first time. And I look forward to a very rewarding discussion with you.
Thank you so very much. Mr. Marco Joseph is the executive director of the Center for Media Studies. But a little bit about our guest before we go into the conversation. Marco Limonga Joseph, executive director of the Center for Media Studies and Peace Building. He is a professional journalist and civil society activist for more than a decade. He served in so many capacities. Vice President, Press Union of Liberia, that is the PUL, Vice President, West African Journalists Association, that's WAJA, Regional Executive Committee member of West African Civil Society Forum, 2003 IFJ Journalist of Tolerance Award. He netted that award right there. Chair, Board of Directors, West African Network for Peace Building, Chair of the Liberian Coalition for Free Expression, Chair of the Liberian Freedom of Information Coalition, National Governing Council member of the APRM Liberia. Mr. Joseph holds a master's degree in international relations, MPA in public sector administration, and BA in mass communication. Again, Mr. Joseph, welcome. It is our pleasure having you. So how you doing? How's your family doing? COVID-19, Liberia, how things in the homeland?
Well, we're doing pretty good, keeping safe and ensuring that we serve as a protection for ourselves and make sure that we get the job going to make Liberia a better place for all of us.
All right. Thank you so much, and welcome again, folks who have joined us here at this broadcast. Stay with us, hit the share button, and let's get the interview started. Well, Mr. Joseph, I did not know much about the Center for Media Studies and Peace Building. Not until when I was doing my research to find somebody to talk on this matter. And so I think my audience also found themselves in the very position that I'm in. So let's start with your institution. What is all about? Let's start with your mission. What is the mission of the Center for Media Studies and Peace Building?
Well, basically, Siemens as an organization itself was established several years back, over a decade now, and they were established to confront the issue of bad media practices in our country, and especially we were evolving from a civil conflict at the time, And we strongly believe that the media can be used as an instrument, in as much as the media can be used as an instrument to foment chaos, the media also can be used as an instrument to propagate peace and make our place a better place for all of us. So that is the idea, the background from which CMS came into existence, and our entire focus has been creating an environment, a holistic environment that we give journalists and media practitioners an opportunity to practice their profession, flourish, so that press freedom can flourish in our country, Liberia. So basically, these are some of the niche, the focus of the establishment of CMS itself as an organization.
Well, thank you for that. In your mission statement, you said to promote free media in a peaceful and democratic society. And so my question I'm asking is, how do you promote this peaceful and democratic society in the media or in Liberia? Mr. Jose, are you with us?
You clearly.
Asking the question, you said your mission statement is to promote a free media in a peaceful and democratic society. How do you do it? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Well, we do it first of all by engaging media practitioners themselves, giving them the confidence to be able to do their work freely. And secondly, we also do so in a more tangible way, engaging the media legal regulatory environment. Because, that is one area that we have placed a lot of premium on as an institution, because we believe that if the legal environment is not conducive enough for the media to flourish, definitely it will be a useless venture. So we embarked several years back on a media law reform process. The laws we had on the books, even as we speak now, even though we are making some little progress, but the laws we have on the books are very old, some as old as 60, 70, if not 100 years, as it relates to the media. That tells you that these kind of laws don't conform to the realities of today. For example, we talk about the social media. As you know, when social media came, so when those laws were written, it didn't reflect social media. Even the community radio sector itself is not reflected. So we began a process where we think we need to reform our media laws as a first step. Because if we reform the laws, we put the necessary legislation in place, then obviously the next aspect is for journalists to be able to operate in adherence with the laws that are set out. So we started back, like I said, during the media law reform process, and that was a working group that brought together several organizations. CMS happened to be the chair of the organization, which I chaired, where we initiated several legislations. We succeeded in getting some passed. For example, we succeeded in getting the Freedom of Information Law passed in 2010. We have a Freedom of Information Law now, one of the best in the whole world. The Liberian Freedom of Information Law is rated as the 5th best law in the world. That tells you we put a lot into it in trying to develop that legislation. We also succeeded, CMS as an organization, we are working with the World Association newspaper, organized a forum where we had former President Johnson Sirleaf to sign on to the Table Mountain Declaration. And the Table Mountain Declaration is essentially is an international instrument that is used to decriminalize free speech. Those offenses that borders around free speech that are criminalized, we are saying it should be civil matter. So there was an initiative ongoing around the globe where you have governments to sign on to the Table Mountain Declaration, declaring their commitment to support that initiative. We succeeded in getting President Sirleaf in 2012 to sign on to the Table Mountain Declaration. And that was the first step. The next step was to work towards drafting a legislation, which we now have today. The legislation was drafted. We did all the necessary lobbying and what have you, and we couldn't get it passed under the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration. And fortunately, with the George Weah administration, we continue and we succeeded in getting that law passed, which is the Kamala Press Freedom Act. So that is a follow-up to the Table Mountain Declaration. There are a couple of other legislations that are still pending before the legislature. Media bills. We have before the legislature the Community Radio Sustainability Act. You know, community radio is a voluntary organization. Institution. Most of its staff, the volunteers. So we are saying there should be a legislation that will provide some level of sustainability for the community radio. That is still at the legislature. It's stable at the legislature. We also have what we call the Public Service Broadcaster Act. You know, the state broadcaster we have right now, which is ELBC, it's a state broadcaster as it is. That is to tell you that a public service, let me just give you an idea of what a public service broadcaster is. A public service broadcaster is essentially independent institution. It's not necessarily remote control by the president of the day. Funding to a public service broadcaster is by legislation. For example, you got the BBC, for example. BBC is a public service broadcaster. So no president, no prime minister in Great Britain can say we can give funding to the BBC. No, because it is by law. So allotment is made at the level of the legislature. With that, it gives the public service broadcaster has an independence. And we will concentrate more on providing unbalanced, unfiltered information to the public, and also it will concentrate on developing programs that are to the benefit of the ordinary people, as opposed to competing with commercial radio stations for advertisements or what have you. So the state broadcaster as it is right now, you know, President George Weah can sleep on the wrong side, wakes up the next day and he can dismiss the entire management at LBS, for example. It is within his power to do so. But under a public service broadcaster arrangement, that won't be the case. The removal will be for a just cause. You understand? So with that, the management will have that independence to operate. And with that independence, definitely, you know, the public service, the state broadcaster as it is right now, will not sing praises to the government of the day. All previous governments and even government of today are all making use of the state broadcaster simply because it is merely a state broadcaster. So that is one law that we have at the legislature pending as well. We also have what we call, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to hold you there. There's a lot you put out there, and I wanted to ask question on a few of them, talking about the Freedom of Information Act. You know, we heard about this, and I'm not sure how it's being utilized in getting the necessary information that the public needs. So I'm asking the question, what is it and what good can it do? Because it's kind of difficult sometimes to get information from the government when people need it. There are a lot of legal wrangling or steps that one has to follow. So what good is it? Sorry, you are muted. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you are right. Having the legislation in place, having the law in place is one thing, and having the law being implemented to the latter is another thing. I can safely say to you that the Liberia Freedom of Information regime is slowly treading. I must admit, we know we come from the background of that secrecy syndrome, you know, where governments are not open, they will come from. So having a freedom of information law, obviously we understand that it has to take time, but I can tell you for true that definitely it requires the political will of the government of the day to ensure that we have a flourishing access to information or freedom of information regime. There are not been support to the Information Commission. The law itself provides that the establishment of an Information Commission, when, like I told you, our law is rated the 5th best law in the world. That tells you we put a lot into it. We give that commission a lot of independence. But the political will is not there. It's not just restricted to this government. Even Madam Salif's government, the lack of political will have hampered the progress and the work of the Information Commission that has the statutory responsibility to oversee the implementation of the law.
What I'm hearing from you, what I'm hearing from you is that this law is rated the 5th in the world on paper, But in terms of implementation, you are trying to tell me, yeah, that is a different ball game. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Exactly. That is what I'm saying. Yes, on paper we have a good law, but implementation is not good. You know, there's a lot that we need to improve upon our implementation, and that comes with the political will from the government of the day. And I can safely tell you that there's a lack of political will on the part of this administration, and also on the part of even the past administration under President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's administration, which for which the information freedom information law was given birth to. You know, as I was mentioning, Siemens as an organization has we have tested the access to information regime in Liberia. At a particular case in point, we filed before we made a request under the FOI regime to the Liberian Anti-Corruption Commission, asking for copies of all presidential appointees, copies of their asset declaration, because under the law, you're supposed to declare your asset. We need copies of all ministers that were appointed in the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf government. That request was made to the Anti-Corruption Commission. The Anti-Corruption Commission at the time wrote us back and say, well, we have exhausted our budget to provide you provide you the information that you want. So if you can cover the cost, we'll give you the information. True, they were right, because the law provides that if I want a copy of any information, I who's seeking the information should be able to pay for the reproduction of it. So we wrote them back, tell us the cost, we will pay. And then the next communication came back to us. In fact, we cannot give you those information because those information are private information. People declare their asset. So we said no. Under the Freedom of Information Law, the public is entitled to that information, because our law clearly states those information that are exempted. So we took the matter to the Information Commission. We filed a complaint to the Information Commission. Our lawyers went for the hearing. The Anti-Corruption Commission at the time sent their lawyers, we went to the hearing, and we won the case. The Information Commission ruled in our favor that the information should be provided to us. The Anti-Corruption Commission took an appeal to the Civil Law Court, which is in line with the law. You know, took an appeal took the matter to the Civil Law Court and abandoned it at the level of the Civil Law Court. Now, Siemens as an organization, we become a second respondent in that instance, because it was the decision of the Information Commission that was appealed. So we became a second respondent. So after that, we wrote, I think, 3 or 4 letters back to the Information Commission telling them that we are still interested in this information. And as I speak to you, nothing has been done. This is almost 5 years I'm talking about. This issue has been lingering. Nothing has been done to it.
So, Mr. Joseph, you can see that you can see that this law, as good as it sounds, more like it's not implementable in Liberia. That's one possibility. Or those who are responsible to apply, to abide by the law, so that, you know, the fruits of the law can be realized in the interest of the people, are themselves playing games with the law. I mean, guess what you just narrated? The Freedom of Information Act applied that, look, if you want information from the government, you can request it and use it. You did that and say, hey, we don't have the money now for us to release the information. You came by and say, okay, if that's the case, I'm going to pay for it. You pay it, and now they can't give you the information. And then you will go to the court, and then they have to go to the court to appeal to not release the information after they have promised you that, look, if you make the money available, we'll give you the information. So this is like a Zobuch. What do you think?
No, that's exactly the case. But like again, because the complaint from the Information Commission is that they don't have the necessary support to pursue the matter. And that is just one case for Siemens, even though we have about 3 cases pending before the Information Commission. But I just one. But there are several other institutions that have filed requests for information, and those requests are not being provided. Those information are not being provided as we speak. I'm just speaking from the Siemens perspective. So there's several, and the Information Commission tells you that they lack the logistical support to do their work. As I speak to you, there is information that I just got, I think yesterday, that the office of the Information Commission is being evicted because government cannot pay the rent. for their offices.
So as we speak, going back to what we're talking about on the access declaration, so these public officials, it is now something that nobody can be able to get, given your experience there. I mean, if I want information about a particular official of government asset, I will not be able to get it. That is why we are hearing from you. And not that the law is stopping that from happening, but individuals who should be providing the information are not willing to do so in contravention of the law.
Sure, but it's not a dead end to it. There have been requests that the information requests that have been made, the information have been provided. Some institutions have been adherents to the law. But like I said, if a particular institution fails to provide the information that contravenes the law, that is the institution should be made to do so. That is why when the LACC denied us that information, we still had a belief and conviction that we were entitled to that information. So we took it to the Information Commission in accordance with the law, which was the first step. And the Information Commission ruled that this information should be provided. And the LACC of all institutions that's supposed to be an anti-graft organization, that's supposed to be an accountability organization, took an appeal to the Civil Law Court and abandoned the case. They took the appeal and abandoned it. Now the Information Commission says it lacks the logistical support to be able to pursue the matter. And we cannot go to court on that matter because it was not our decision. If the decision that was appealed was the decision of the Information Commission. So, but like we said, we continue to do advocacy around it. We cannot give up. The access to information regime, like we said, this is something that we need to fight for. We can't give up. So we'll continue to engage. We'll continue to invoke the law. Like we have been supported last year before last, we've been supported by USAID project where we provided technical support to the very Information Commission. As I speak to you, we also have won a project with the EU where we will provide some technical support to the Information Commission. They don't even have a website, for example. Thank you. So there are a couple of things we need to do to build up the Information Commission, carry on the necessary advocacy to make sure that this regime, the access to information regime, works.
Thank you so very much. That's the voice of Mr. Malcolm Wulimonga Joseph, Executive Director of the Center for Media Studies and Peace Building in Liberia. The institution is more like a mediator between the media institutions, media personnel, and the government of Liberia in order to promote the issue of press freedom, democracy, and good governance in Liberia. Let's come to this issue of the Table Mountain Declaration. I know you tried to touch on it earlier, but here I focus on Liberia. Our goal is always to educate the public on these things as we try to dig them up so that they can be in the know. You talk a little bit on the Freedom of Information Act. I asked you some questions, and we realize that as good as this law is, people who should be able to abide by this law are not abiding by the law. So the intent of the law is being compromised. Let's test the Table Mountain Declaration. So talk to me about the Table Mountain Declaration. What is the significance of this particular protocol? We heard about it, but not many people have had the opportunity to listen to somebody who, follow these things to really explain it.
Well, basically, I would like to begin with why this declaration is called the Table Mountain Declaration. In Cape Town, South Africa, there was a meeting held in Cape Town, South Africa, where it brought together freedom of expression and press freedom advocates from around Africa to see how we can be able to better improve upon the media landscape in Africa. And as an outcome of that meeting, the Table Mountain Declaration evolved. And you know there's a mountain in Cape Town, South Africa called the Table Mountain. You write people go there, tourists go there. I've been to the Table Mountain, and the hotel where the meeting was held was like just overlooking the Table Mountain. So that is how the name, the Table Mountain Declaration, came into being. But basically, this is geared towards because we realize that in most of the legislations, most of the laws in Africa, the issues on free speech, freedom of expression, they are all criminalized. So we are saying no, it should be decriminalized. That's the whole essence of the Table Mountain Declaration. So after we get government's commitment to sign here that they agree that we decriminalize speech, then you move to the next level to make sure that you introduce the legislation that will decriminalize speech. So Liberia as a country, we've crossed the first tier. We have President Salif acceding to the Table Mountain Declaration, and we succeeded in putting into place this law that have decriminalized speech right now, which is titled the K. Abdullahi Kamara Act of Press Freedom. I think you're aware the late Abdullahi Kamara was the president of Liberia. So this act was named after him. So that law is in force right now. And with that, it has decriminalized speech. So issues on free speech, if I impugn upon your reputation as a person, it should be a civil matter instead of a criminal matter. With that, it gives journalists at least that semblance of ease in respect to doing their work. At least it allays that fear that, hey, if I write something and somebody gets offended, it won't be something that it will be criminal of nature, but it will be a civil matter. So that's the whole essence of that.
All right, thank you. Let's come to your programs. Let's come to your program, and I see that on your program, you're talking about consolidating the peace, good governance. You have been doing some good governance training. You have been doing some political accountability training. So let come to those, and let me ask my first question here. Talking about consolidating the peace, how are you consolidating the peace in Liberia?
Well, we consolidate the peace by the nature of the work that we do. We must admit as an institution that we are Center for Media Studies and Peace Building. Mm-hmm. But we must admit as an institution that we in terms of the work that we do, can estimate that like 75% is about media, freedom of expression issues, as opposed to, it's not a balanced 50-50, as opposed to the peace building work that we do. But it's on the low end, probably because we may not have in-house right now the expertise, the peace building expertise that we had before. But be as it may, like I mentioned at the inception of this program, you realize that the media itself is very crucial and cardinal to the sustenance of democracy, to the sustenance of peace and tranquility in any situation that we may have. Because you see, like I tell people, we who from the traditional background, our people can always say, the media have not said it, so I don't believe it. I've not heard it on the radio. Even if you go to a village, you say, oh, this is so is happening in town and what have you. My uncle in the village will tell you, I've not heard it on the radio yet, or let me put my radio on. That tells you the level of trust that people have in the media. Because anything that comes out of the media is supposed to be true. That is what makes the media very crucial. Just imagine if people believe anything that is supposed to believe anything that comes out of the media, that tells you that the media should put out nothing but the truth. You understand? Because you may spell out lies, misinformation, fake news, and what have you. As a result, you may get a whole nation going amok on the basis of that reportage. You all know, we know the infamous Radio Rwanda situation and what have you. So that tells you the level of power, the power and influence that the media wields. So we think that if we can utilize the media to build upon and solidify and consolidate our peace, it will be helpful. And I think we will work on that. Yes, Siemens came into being were incorporated in 2004. We actually started actual work in 2005. And you tell me in 2005, from that time, Liberia was still in crisis, so to speak. So the media play a very crucial role. We started with doing peace building training for journalists. Journalists need to understand what are the paradigms of peace building, how they can be able to use their respective platforms to make sure that they propagate those messages, that we heal the wounds and sustain our peace. Right now, like I said, substantial portion of our work have been dedicated to building the capacity of the media from a professional standpoint, creating the legal regulatory environment so that the media can be able to operate. We've done a lot of work around
let's come to good governance, Mr. Joseph. Let's come to good governance. I know from my research, you have been conducting good governance training here and there. So let's talk about good governance. Why are some of your good governance training and who you have conducted, and why you felt the need that you needed to conduct some training in the area of good governance?
Well, like you say, governance is an issue. And when we talk about democratic governance, press freedom is an aspect of democracy. You cannot leave press freedom outside of democracy. So if we are talking about good governance in a country, we believe that our journalists must be equally equipped to be able to understand what these issues are. Because you see, it takes me back to just what I said. The platforms that the media has, or individual journalists have, you will realize that these platforms are platforms that you can utilize for the good. So if people not arm enough with information, these platforms will be utilized the wrong way. So we believe that's why we have been exposing our journalists to every aspect of it, even health reporting. We had a pandemic situation, the pandemic in Liberia, even during the Ebola time. We engaged the journalists. There are a lot of trainings that were done for journalists in developing messages that will be able to put people in a position to be able to keep themselves safe.
So and I saw that you did some work on how to report on elections as well.
We are grounded on that as well. We do a lot of work on election. We do election reporting, training nearly all of the time. We have the expertise, we have the international expertise where we've observed more than 25 elections around the world. And then we come back because, let's say, like they say, there's no small election. And, during elections, this is a tension-packed event. People can even kill people during elections. You know that. So the media itself must be well placed. The temptation during election for the media is so high from another angle. So we have to prepare the media in a way that they will be able to engage the process and make sure that they report objectively, they report fairly, and report balanced.
Mr. Joseph, let me stop you there. Preparing the media on how to report is a very good thing. But if the media personnel or the media institution is working accordingly based on their training, but they have to report on the government, maybe about an agency of government, election commission, for example, or an official of government, for example, and if this official does not have the understanding why that media personnel is asking that question or is at that agency, chances are that there might be confusion, and we have seen it in Liberia. The question I'm getting to is this good governance training, has it only been only for the media, or have you been able to include officials of government too, especially those handling government or public relations? Because these people will see them just snapping the journalists, they don't want to talk to them or just talk to them anyway, or not want to give them information.
Yes, well, most of our training have been with journalists. Or we work with other civil society actors. We've also done training for government officials, now officials so to speak. We run training programs for public relations officers. We run training programs for public information officers as well. And so we engage government for every sector. Besides training programs around, we run conferences. As a matter of fact, in like a month or now, we'll be running a national conference on press freedom in Liberia. So we bring all of the stakeholders to the table, whether it's government, whether it's media, whether it's civil society. We bring all of the stakeholders to the table and discuss these issues. So it may not necessarily be training for government. Like I said, the only trainings we've run for public relations officers and public information officers in government. We don't run good governance training for government officials, no. Primarily, our work is focused on journalists, but we've conducted several national conferences that bring government officials to the fray, and we discuss these issues as it borders on press freedom, freedom of expression, access to information, and what have you.
Mr. Jose, according to our research, you also have been doing something you call political accountability training. What is political accountability training, or what do you call political accountability?
Well, we just strongly believe that our political actors, our governors, must be able to account to the people. And this kind of engagement that we run, like I said, we primarily run this with journalists. We don't train the quote unquote political actors. You understand? So we run it with journalists. When journalists understand these issues, the journalists now take the actors to task in their using their respective platforms. You know, yes, during I know sometimes we engage political actors, but maybe during electionary period, I can recall we ran a program, a training program, I think it was 2017 elections for all the spokespersons of the various political parties. And basically that training program was geared towards moderating their language, tuning it out so as not to inflame conflict, so that the process of campaigning, the political activities remain very peaceful. So we did that. But looking at the issue of political accountability, as I said, we engage the journalists. We deal with the journalists. When the journalists are equipped, we equip them, and then the journalists go and use their respective platform to call the political actors to book if they are going off track in terms of being accountable to the people they want to govern.
All right, let's come to the issue of protest, the right to peacefully protest. From your standpoint, what is a peaceful protest and what is not a peaceful protest?
Very interesting question. Well, in my understanding of a peaceful protest, every citizen under the law have a right to assemble peacefully. If you have your grievances, if you want to petition, present your petition. Once it's done in a peaceful manner, where you don't infringe on the right of another citizen, of course, I'll consider that as being a peaceful protest. So, and we think that every individual under the law has a right to do so. And for like we jokingly say around here, it has become a norm right now in Liberia, where every little thing people go and buy their postal sheets and write their messages on it, and then they assemble somewhere and then they peacefully protest. So I think it's a right under the law, and I should encourage that, as long as it's not going to be violent.
All right, let's come to association and expression. Are there limits to association freedom, to associate, and the freedom, to express oneself? Are there limits from your opinion, or in your opinion?
Well, we have the laws. The laws are there. We have a right to freely associate. Mm-hmm. We have a right to freely express ourselves and take responsibility for the abuse thereof. That is what our law says. And so once the law says so, I think everyone should be given the opportunity to exercise that right under the law. The law will say we can freely associate, we can freely express ourselves. And so everyone should have that right. So I personally don't believe that right should be infringed upon anyone. If anyone wants to express themselves, they should express themselves and take responsibility for the abuse thereof.
Folks in cyberspace, you are watching Focus on Liberia. We are in conversation with Mr. Malcolm Ulimonga Jose, Executive Director of the Center for Media Study and Peace Building in Liberia. Welcome and stay with us as we go into this conversation. Right now, we will be going into a major aspect of this interview. There is something this institution called Media Alert. And what it is the major events that happen in Liberia concerning journalists and media institutions. They have been documenting these things and also talking about them, especially where the rights of the media and their rights are being violated, and they have been able to catalog these things. Let me show you some of them quickly, and then we'll get to Mr. Jose here for him to comment on these things. So stay with us. Yeah, it is. So, Mr. Jose, your group, the Center for Media Study, has been giving some media alerts about the major events that have happened in the country to journalists or media institutions as well. Number one, on the 21st of January 2019, journalist Mary Williams was dismissed. And then we also have on the 31st of that very January 2019, army attacked radio station in Liberia. Then February of 2019, increased aggression on Root FM. You were able to catalog that. February 2020, journalist dies weeks after alleged brutality by state security. I believe this one happened to what's his name? The guy at what's his called? OKFM, Zeno Miller. And then on the 22nd of February 2019, journalists barred from covering the legislature. March 2019, President Weah signed Freedom of Press Act. I don't know how that's working right now. And then unknown men attack radio station in Liberia. I think that is Costa Radio. Then the 3rd of March 2020, radio station manager brutus live by DEA officers. March 25th, 2020, security agency interrogate journalist over Facebook post. 27 March 2020, journalist murderer sentenced to life imprisonment. So these are the things you are documenting. Why are you doing these things?
We are part of we are part of a lot of international networks. Mm-hmm. If you know the International Freedom Expression Exchange, we are a member. That is a network of about 120 organizations, freedom expression organizations around the globe. We are part of a lot of networks, so a lot of institutions rely on us in terms of providing information as it relates to the media. Even if you, in most instances, if you see the U.S. State Department Human Rights Report, if you look at the section on press freedom for Liberia, you will realize that most of the information provided there are information that we provide through an institution called the Freedom House, which is based in the U.S. Because we provide the information to Freedom House, and the State Department rely on Freedom House for those information to form part of their overall human rights report and press freedom report from Liberia. So we document these attacks on freedom of expression or press freedom, and we, as they occur, we record it, and then we make sure that we issue it internationally. And the essence of this is to ensure that we bring pressure to bear on the government or authority of the day to make sure that it creates that enabling environment so that the journalists can freely operate. So we catalog these things and then we document them. They are posted on various international websites around the world. And of course, we also, as an institution, on an annual basis, we produce the report, in hard copy, I think, like, yeah, this is one old one. This is one year, I think 2010, 2011, this is the 2011 report, and which we issue in 2011. So on an annual basis, we document it into hard copy, and we serve the relevant government ministries with copies of these so that they can be able to, just recollect and identify these shortcomings to help so that they can get engaged with the respective authorities to make sure, to make sure that they create that environment so that we can be able to avert some of these kind of situations. As we speak right now, Liberia's press freedom rating, our press freedom rating globally is partly free. And we have been in this category for the last 10 years. We were not free, we're in a not free category, and we came out of the not free category, and now we are in a partly free category, which we've been there for almost 10 years. We look forward to the day where we will get to the category of being free in the press freedom rating, like Ghana, like a few other countries in Africa here who have attained that. We look forward to it. So how can we get there? We must be able to highlight these issues. When we highlight these issues, it will send a signal to the authorities of the day to make the necessary amendments to make sure that the environment gets better for journalists to operate.
Thank you so very much. A final question. The media in Liberia, we've seen some intimidation. You just said that we are not in the not free category. Talking about intimidation, how free is the media when it is doing a work? You just catalog all these incidents of the journalists being brutalized here and there, some of them to the point that they lost their lives and all. So are the journalists in Liberia free to practice?
Well, like we said, everyone is practicing, but I can say journalists are free to practice and they are practicing. But we know there can be excesses. Overzealous public officials sometimes want to take the law into their own hands and what have you. So there are some cases that have come up with in terms of attacks and brutality on journalists by some public officials. But if I will say generally, I can say generally that journalists are freely expressing themselves because they use their respective platforms, get their messages across, and like I said, just be mindful of it. But hey, it's not all perfect. You can recall the recent situation with the Roots FM scenario, for example. You can recall even during the coronavirus, the situation with the Deputy Minister of Information Fagon and the President of Liberia, war passes and what have you. So these are all issues. Sometimes people who man these places, they don't even understand how these things work. So if you understand how these things work, you will not create unnecessary problem to tint the press freedom image of the country. It just take me back to that issue of the passes with the journalists during the COVID-19 situation. There's something that impacted the media landscape negatively globally, and people just take advantage of it and don't even know the impact of what they are doing.
Thank you. What would be your final thoughts here to your fellow Liberians listening to you concerning good governance and issue of the media in Liberia? Your parting comment, please.
Well, I strongly believe that as a media, journalists have a role, have a responsibility to play. We're not saying the journalists are all perfect. We know there are situations with some of our colleagues, because we do media monitoring, we monitor the journalists. So we know those who are doing professional job, those who may be slipping off. That's why we continue to engage them, because we're not going to give up in the process. But be as it may, the media, you cannot have a society without the media, because the media is there to provide information, educate the society, everything I'll do. We're in a pandemic right now. Just imagine in the absence of the media, how will you be able to transmit the messages to the public to make sure that they keep themselves safe? I just use that as a classical example. So the media has a very crucial role to play in the development in any democracy for that matter. So we want to call upon our authorities to make sure that they create that environment, to make sure that they are receptive enough to the media so that the media can be able to flourish as an independent entity. We also believe that journalists must be responsible. We shouldn't use our airwaves to get at people. We don't expect that journalists should use the airwaves to lash out on people unnecessarily, or maybe because you have issues with somebody, or maybe you don't subscribe to their political ideology or what have you. No. That is not the essence of the media. We should use the media to propagate the general good of our society. So we think that we are all in this boat together. And like we said, I think one point in time we ran an interaction between the media and the security. After that time, we realized that there were excesses from the security attacks on the media. It was on the increase. So we thought to bring the media and bring the security together, and we discussed our common problem. And you will realize that following the meeting, there are a lot of improvement, because it's like, hey, the media itself, they didn't understand the role of the security men, for example. and know that this man had to provide a protection for VIP. So, and the almighty journalists believe that once there's a VIP there no one should stop him or her for taking his microphone there. So at that engagement, we realize that the security can understand, hey, these people, they are journalists, they have a role, they have a piece of work to do to provide information to the public. So we should give them access to people who have the information. Then on the other hand, the journalists understand that, hey, the security man is providing VIP security for the VIP. He too have a role to provide that protection. So if he tells you wait, you have to wait. So that understanding came up, and I can tell you that is one of our success stories that we have documented. That following that meeting, you realize that the attacks or the acrimonious situation between security and journalists, it reduced tremendously. And we think that such an engagement needs to continue.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you. That was the voice of Macon Libonga Joseph, Executive Director of the Center for Media Study and Peace Building in Liberia. We have just had an exclusive conversation with him on media matters in Liberia, how the media can be used to promote peace in Liberia, to solidify the governance issue of our country so that we can have a Liberia that we can all be free in to live our life. And he said the media must be free, or we must practice freely. But the question I'm asking is, how free is the media to practice freely? And he also said the media too must be cognizant of their own responsibility, and they must be professional in what they do. Not because you have the almighty microphone, you should have unhindered access in every place. Though that is not so. If you want access, you must ask for access. And if you are asked to wait, you must wait. And that is how it must happen, so that we can have a media relation in Liberia, a media that brings information to the people and inform the public about what is going on in Liberia. Folks, thank you for watching us. We never close here without our closing song that says, we are all Liberians. Whether or not you are in the media landscape, you are still Liberian. Whether you believe what the people say, whether you believe the education that we are providing here, or you are that person who is looking for juicy political drama on social media, you are still a Liberian. Whether you listening to me or not, you are still a Liberian. And I will do my work, and the media institution will do a work. Thank you, and bye-bye.
We are Liberia. Liberia is our home. Liberia people. Liberia.